Walking Stick Library presents GAO versus USAID. Find out more. And remember, you can always catch us live on Twitch.
Try that. But anyway, yes, this little austere thing likes that idea. We have two topics left. We're not going to get to both tonight. And this one is, again, American politics. I apologize to where you're here and Smashing Ghoul, who are both from other countries. We have a president that is destroying the civil service. Our federal government is like a big industry. State governments are smaller industries. They employ people to do all sorts of stuff. Most of it pretty good. A little bit of it not so good. And Trump has been alleging there is massive fraud. Fraud is a criminal charge. To do fraud, you have to give nothing for something, or not enough for something, or something you shouldn't give for something you got that you should have. That's not good. Doing something that we don't like or can be wasteful, it can just be stuff you don't like, but it's not fraud. Fraud is very particular. So, DEI is not fraud. If you say you're going to provide DEI and you provide it, that's not fraud. If you're going to sell somebody a crappy candle and you send it to them, they can see the candle online and they get what they thought they were getting. They may not like what they're getting, but they're not defrauded. They asked for the candle. They got the candle. That's something for something. We want to see where there is nothing for something. Now be aware, the government has a budget in the trillions of dollars. That is, I think 16 or 17 zeros. That's nine, that's 12 zeros. 12, that's 12 zeros and a 1 times whatever. So, ooh, somebody came in the house. Hello. I'm not buying what you have. Okay, I don't know how to do this quickly, but I'm not buying what you have. You're welcome to stay, but I'm not buying what you're selling. And you're spamming me, and I resent it. Yeah. That's what you get for spamming me. I could do a Bronx cheer, but I won't. And I could give you the finger, but I won't. And right now, I'm not looking up how to give you a timeout, but I'd like to. And don't come here again if that's all you're going to do is sell stuff. As much as I want viewers, I don't want what you're doing. Okay, let's bring down the curtain and minimize. And we've got, somewhere here we had a GAO report. This is an April GAO report on government fraud. And remember what I said about 12 zeros? So 233 billion and 521 billion is 3 to 7% of the whole budget. And some of that, this was from 2018, this was out of 40 trillion. So this is 40,000 billion over here. A trillion is 1,000 billion. So what we're looking at is, and we can do this over here. $40,000 on the bottom, 40,000 billion. And up here we've got, and I'm going to just take a number in the middle, let's say about 350 billion out of 40 trillion. And that's going to be, 40 trillion is 40,000 billion. So here we have 300 over 40,000. That is what they figure that government fraud is. And when you see it that way, it's a lot easier to get to. I'm going to use Google over here. 300 over 40,000. So that comes out too, and I don't know how they get that. But if they said 3 to 7%, I get here less than 1%. They say 3 to 7 over here. Go get them back. Where are they? They're right here. Bring them right over. Okay. GAO estimated total annual financial loss of the government from fraud to be 233 billion to 521 billion. Remember, we're working with billions and trillions here. So numbers are relative. It pays to be a tad numerate. Based on data from fiscal year 2018 through 2022, so this is over 4 years, and it's during COVID when the pandemic preparedness grants went out, and they were notoriously bad. The range reflects the different risk environments during this period. 90% of the estimate of fraud losses fell in this range. The GAO collected data from 3 sources to develop and estimate investigative data, such as the number of cases sent for prosecution, the dollar value of closed cases, Inspector General semi-annual report information, and confirmed fraud data reported to the Office of Management and Budget by agencies. The GAO organized these data around 3 fraud categories: adjudicated, detected potential, and undetected potential. And it then designed it, and it went through 46 fraud studies. And applying the estimate to agencies and programs, GAO's model was developed to estimate government-wide federal fraud. The fraud estimate represents 3 to 7% of average federal obligations. These percentages should not be applied at the agency or program level, because you don't know what's going on in your program. It may be a lot less. While every federal program and operation is at risk of fraud, the level of risk can vary substantially. Controls, growth or shrinkage of budget, and the emergence of new fraud schemes are some of the reasons the risk level can vary. GAO's estimate was based on data from fiscal years 2018 through 2022. The data include time periods of programs with and without pandemic-related spending. Therefore, the estimate includes, but is not limited to, pandemic-related spending fraud. While the upper range of the estimate is associated with higher risk environments, it is not possible to break out a subset of our government-wide estimate to describe pandemic program fraud. Comparing with improper payment estimates, GAO's estimate is not comparable to improper payment estimates. Improper payment estimates are based on a subset of federal programs using a methodology not designed to identify fraud. GAO also consistently reported that the federal government does not know the full extent of improper payments and has long recommended that agencies improve their improper payment reporting. In contrast, GAO's fraud estimate includes all federal programs and operations and is based on fraud-related data. With these differences in scope and data, the upper end of GAO's estimated fraud range exceeds the improper payment estimates. So we're talking less than 10%, and we're talking in certain places and not others, which is why if you really cared about fraud, you'd take it down with a scalpel. So fraud estimates provide information on the extent of fraud that is needed to effectively detect and prevent wrongdoing. By not understanding the scope of the problem, some may assume the problem does not exist and not direct resources to stop fraud. And this is to improve oversight prioritization. Fraud estimates could help prioritize oversight resources, reliably determining the extent of fraud, both frequency and impact, and demonstrate return on investment. So this is what we've got. And what the GAO recommends is making two recommendations to the Office of Management and Budget. One is in collaboration with the Council of Inspectors General on integrity and efficiency. We already had one. And the other with the agency to improve the availability of fraud-related data. GAO is also making a recommendation to the Department of Treasury to expand government-wide fraud estimation in consultation with OMB. OMB generally agreed with the recommendations but disagreed with the estimate. GAO believes the estimate is sound. As discussed with the report, CIGE stated it would work with OMB to consider how the Office of Inspector Generals might improve fraud-related data. Treasury agreed with the recommendation, and of course now, this was April 2024. Of course, now everything's a mess. April 2024. So right now, everything is a mess. GAO's Government Accounting Office, what it does is, and I can show you, let's do a quick search in Wikipedia. Government Accountability Office. Yep. The Government Accountability Office is an independent, nonpartisan government agency within the legislative branch that provides auditing, evaluated, and investigative services for the United States Congress. Okay. So this brings us to topic number 2 tonight. And yes, we are running what we run. Sometimes it's better to be alone. I ran him out on a rail, and I don't feel bad about it. And this is still not working, which is fine. That was for a different project. So what we are going to be looking at is, let me get some space here on the board. What we are going to be looking at is, has the GAO ever done anything to USAID? I'm on Cloud Hub, where I should not be, but I go. And I've seen lots of accusations that USAID is a money laundry. And I've heard stories that it's a cover for the CIA, and you name it, it's been there. But has GAO, hello, and we're going to make that a 48. Has GAO, everyone's favorite alphabet soup, gotten its hands on USAID, which is the U.S. Foreign Aid Office. United States Aid and Development. This is GAO, Government Accounting Office. What have they had to say about USAID? And we can do this in a number of ways. We can do this through the library. We can also do this through Google. And we want GAO and USAID. Alphabet soup tonight. And this is a very simple search, and we're going to see if there's been any newspaper, journal, I don't know what else, government documents showing up. Let me get back, and let me get Google, and we'll get a GSU library up and running. And if we don't like that, we'll do the search in Google. But I have a hunch we're a repository. We're a federal repository. GSU is a federal repository. We're going to get something. And yes, we're doing a government docs search. Parsnips and government docs. Tomorrow night is West Nile. And yeah, I'm capitalizing everything just because I'm used to it as an acronym. The and is, again, this guy. We just want the overlap. What did the GAO have to say about USAID? Let's give this a go and see what we get. And yes, we have to log in. USAID should improve collection of security risks information to help awardee mitigation efforts. Master file complete. Okay, we get our first one. Master file complete is the database. Here we have it. GAO, United States Government Accountability Office. Cuba Democracy Assistance, USAID should improve collection of security risk information to help awardee mitigation efforts. This is one piece of it. What should they be doing? The U.S. Agency for Internet, this came out January 2025, right before Trump axed everything. Why did we do this study? Cuba remains a one-party authoritarian state that restricts basic rights beginning in fiscal year 1996. Congress has regularly made appropriation available for programs seeking to promote democratic values and human rights in Cuba. In other words, dissent. The U.S. provides Cuba democracy assistance through USAID, state and grant funding to NED. I don't know what that is, which in turn makes awards to implementing partners. However, the Cuban government has opposed democracy assistance, resulting in risks for awardees. Okay, so this is to protect your awardees from the Cuban government. And this is how they do it. They're not asking about, that's not risk of fraud, that's risk of people getting hurt. And we can check, and I don't know what NED is, but we can look that up. NED Cuba, let's see if we can give this. National Endowment for Democracy. Bingo. Okay. USAID, state, and National Endowment for Democracy address travel to Cuba and take steps to protect Cuba democracy assistance and awardees or beneficiaries. USAID, so we're not protecting themselves from fraud, we're protecting the people we give this to from the government. USAID and state have worldwide protection programs that Cuba democracy assistance awardees can use to address security issues. In addition, USAID and NED, which is National Endowment for Democracy, all refer awardees to protection programs available from the US and other countries. So, yeah, this isn't about fraud. This is something else. And they were busy in Cuba promoting democracy. Well, they're not anymore, thank you, Donald Trump. Priority open recommendations for U.S. Agency for International Development, 11/6/24. Business source complete. Let's give a grab for that. I think my target is zinging, my little target on the wall. Priority open recommendations for U.S. Agency. Dear Administrator Power, the purpose of this letter is to provide an update on the overall status of the U.S. Agency for International Development's implementations of the GAO's recommendations and call your continued personal attention. Yes, there is an organization that goes after fraud. This is it. You're looking at it. GAO. Recommendation, call for your continued personal attention to areas where our recommendations should be given high priority. In November of 2023, we reported that on a government-wide basis, 75% of our recommendations made 4 years ago were implemented. USAID's recommendation implementation rate was 100%. As of May 2024, USAID had 41 open recommendations. Fully implementing these open recommendations could significantly improve agency operations. Since our May 23 letter, USAID has implemented both our open priority recommendations, specifically USAID-related performance goals to assess the progress of the Feed the Future initiative. USAID has also established quantifiable targets for these goals and associated performance indicators. These actions will help USAID meaningfully use performance data to assess, report on progress toward Feed the Future's overall strategic mission. And what the heck was Feed the Future? I do not know. We identified new priority recommendations for this year, improving workforce planning, management, and managing the risk of fraud. And here's managing fraud risk. Fraud poses a significant risk to the integrity of federal programs and erodes trust in government. Our first priority recommendation calls for agency guidance to require regular fraud risk assessments of USAID and documentation of program-specific fraud risk profiles. So this is go look to see how much fraud you have. So there is a procedure for rooting out fraud. We didn't use, DOJ did not use that, and Trump did not use that. Our second priority recommendation calls for USAID to produce and track participation in mandatory fraud awareness training. By fully implementing these recommendations, USAID will strengthen its ability to manage the risk of fraud and have greater assurance that its staff and implementing partners know how to properly prevent, detect, and respond to fraud in its programs. And you can call that window dressing, but it seems like they're playing by the rules. USAID's Bureau for Global Health support U.S. foreign policy by saving lives and promoting health in communities and nations worldwide. As the global health landscape evolves, it is important that the Bureau for Global Health ensures its workforce is appropriately sized and has necessary skills and is well managed. Our first priority recommendation calls for USAID to develop and implement a workforce plan for the Bureau of Global Health. And our second priority recommendation calls for USAID to institutionalize the Bureau's efforts to address negative leadership behaviors such as bullying, identified in its January 22 report on strengthening processes and teamwork. These efforts include establishing systems to promote accountability. So again, you can see what they're doing. You can see that USAID cooperates and that fraud wasn't the big issue here. Here's another one. And again, let's have a look. Okay. USAID should strengthen risk management in conflict zones, and I don't know what risk management means. But there you are, Nigeria, which has problems in the north, Somalia, and the other one. In 2023, USAID obligated about $26 billion to assist 19 countries experiencing violent conflict. Limitations on USAID's ability to directly oversee its assistance in conflict-affected areas increase the risk of misuse or diversion. USAID has documented its commitment to protect the integrity of foreign assistance, steward taxpayer funds, and manage risks of fraud and corruption. GAO was asked to review USAID's risk management in conflict zones. This report evaluates the extent which USAID has processed for assessing risks to assistance delivery in conflict zones, controls to prevent and detect such risks, and mechanisms for sharing lessons learned. GAO reviewed documents, interviewed agency officials. GAO also conducted state visits, reviewed a sample of USAID-funded awards for Nigeria, Somalia, and Ukraine. GAO based its selection on these countries on factors such as prevalence of conflict. In addition to GAO compared USAID's process and controls for guidance for fraud risk management in federal programs, USAID policies and guidance, and standards for internal control of the federal government. GAO was making 9 recommendations to USAID, including that it comprehensively assess, document fraud risks, provide guidance or third-party monitoring of risks, and develop a mechanism for systematically sharing risk-related lessons learned for use in conflict zones. And we somewhere have the recommendations. Here are the recommendations, page 47. Let's take a look. Okay. And here we have how they are going to do it. Nigeria, Somalia, Ukraine mission staff reported some sharing of risk-related lessons. However, USAID lacks a dedicated mechanism for its missions to systemically share lessons learned about managing risk in conflict zones. USAID officials reported some instances of lesson sharing among the selected missions and other USAID bureaus, offices, or missions. For example, a Nigeria mission staff member responsible for award oversight reported that insights provided by BHA and CPS OTI staff who had been based in Nigeria helped them learn to conduct weekly partner check-ins and remote monitoring for awards in high-risk areas. So yeah, I mean, these people go in where the rubber meets the road. Thank you for watching, and remember, you can catch me live on Twitch.